At the time, I was working at a real estate agency. I showed people apartments they could rent and earned a good commission. I tried to work honestly and conscientiously, never deceiving anyone, finding options that best suited my clients' needs, and not pushing options that were more profitable for me. So I had a good reputation. Word of my good work spread by word of mouth from friend to neighbor, so I had no complaints about a lack of clients. I don't know about other realtors, but I had a list of unsellable properties. There are some apartments that are difficult to rent out, and even if you do, people move out after just 2 or 3 months. The reasons for such unpopularity are usually very prosaic. The neighbors are rowdy alcoholics, or the neighborhood is unsafe, or it's far from public transportation. Sometimes there is no renovation either in the building itself or in the apartment. In general, it's all understandable. People take advantage of the low price, are greedy, but it's impossible to live in the conditions offered for that price. So you rent out the property again and again, each time to different people. But there are exceptions. On my list of defective apartments, there were a couple of apartments that were wonderful in every way, in a good neighborhood, bright, spacious, with expensive renovations, cheap, which is nice. Live there. I don't want to. But for some reason, people didn't stay in them. The owners changed more often than in a rundown building with an alcoholic aunt living next door. This situation sometimes stumped me, but I never really thought about it too much. They don't live there, so God bless them. At that time, I had 2 apartments that didn't rent out despite their quality. One was a newly built 2-room apartment in a residential area, and the other was a luxurious 3-room apartment in the very center of the city. It was an old building, but it had been very well renovated and had a glassed-in balcony. My friends and acquaintances had 1,001 mystical reasons for such strange turnover. And my colleagues sometimes whispered about all sorts of scary things. I ignored all this nonsense, as I thought at the time, and didn't believe in anything like that. But one frightening incident made me think hard and rethink my views on the unknown. I had a new client. She was a little strange, red-haired, skinny, with eyes like 2 spotlights, big and green. She looked about 18, but her passport said she was around 30. I saw it when we were signing the contract. She was terribly picky, but in an abnormal way. Oh, how we went through all the options. And she didn't even have any specific requirements. Everything was extremely simple. Closer to the center, transport nearby, and normal repairs. She didn't limit me in terms of price. It would seem that almost any apartment in my database would suit her, but nothing like that. No matter what we looked at, she didn't like it. "Not right," she said. I asked, "What do you want?" "Tell me what you want in an apartment and I'll find it." "I don't know, but when I see it, I'll know it's mine." "Well, tell me what you don't like, and we'll rule out those options." "Everything's fine. It's just not mine. Let's keep looking." That was the entire conversation. That's how we searched for it with her. She looked at everything, chose things, but she looked at them very strangely. She walked around the apartment, looked around, glanced around. She was like a cat led into a new home, so wary. The only thing she didn't do was sniff around. How do normal people look at apartments? They turn the taps, feel the radiators. They check if the plaster is peeling, if there are any stains on the ceiling. Things like that. Normal things. Tenants check to see if the place is livable. They don't sit in the storage rooms. But this strange woman finds a storage room in the apartment, goes in, closes the door, and stands there for 5 minutes. She comes out looking unhappy. It's clear. I have to look for a new apartment again. She didn't like it, that's all. When she did that the first time, I almost twisted my wrist. Then I shrugged it off. Who knows what quirks people have? Oh, I wish I had sent her packing. I wish I had called her crazy. She got on my nerves, of course, but what could I do? Work is work. And it was a quiet season. Few clients, lots of time. And my salary depends on contracts. Anyway, we made it to my stubborn little 3-room apartment. The apartment belongs to my cousin. She lives in another city. So, out of family and friendship, I always signed the lease in her name. Anyway, we arrived, took off our shoes, and went inside. The girl didn't even stay for 10 minutes. She didn't even go into her favorite closet. She came up to me, took something, and said, "This is just what I need. I love everything." Her eyes were shining and she was smiling from ear to ear. It was a little creepy. Well, I thought, thank God. Maybe she'll stay here, since she fell in love with the apartment at first sight. We signed the contract right away and paid the rent. I had 2 sets of keys to this apartment. I gave one to her right away and left the other at home. I didn't think to take it with me. I didn't think it would work out so well, and that I would be able to rent out the apartment. I was an idiot, in a word. I still curse myself for it. We agreed with the redhead that I would bring her the keys in a couple of days. 4 days later, on Wednesday, I had some business to attend to near that place. So I decided, why bother driving back and forth across town? I'll finish up and drop off the keys. I called her that morning, but her phone was off. I figured she was probably still asleep. I decided to take the keys with me and call her later. I finished my errands around 7 in the evening. It was winter, so it was getting dark early. It wasn't pitch black yet, but it was getting pretty dark. I called her cell phone, but it was still off. I didn't want to make another trip. I was feeling lazy, and gas was expensive. Then a plan, rare in its idiocy, formed in my head. I'll take the keys and leave a note, I thought. The door there closes with a click. I'll go in, put the keys on the table, and leave. I arrived and called my cell phone again, still disconnected. The windows in the apartment were dark, which meant no one was home. I went up. I rang the doorbell, just in case. Silence. It wasn't working. I thought, maybe the power was out. Although that was strange, because the lights in the stairwell were on. I knocked just to be sure. No response. Definitely no one was home. I opened the door with my key and went in. I flipped the light switch. It was as dark as before. Sure enough, there was no electricity. Well, I thought it was clear. I took off my shoes and walked into the living room. It's the farthest and largest room in the apartment. I wouldn't have gone that far, but the landlady left very little furniture. There was only a table in the living room. I couldn't just throw the keys and the note on the floor, could I? I wish I had. I went in, put the key down, and tore the piece of paper out of my notebook. I stood with my back to the door, rummaging in my bag, looking for a pen. I heard a rustling sound behind me and footsteps. I turned around, thinking maybe the landlady had come back. I didn't hear the door slam. Maybe she was sleeping on the sofa in the bedroom. What else is there to do in the dark? And here I am, all dressed up, showing up uninvited. I turned around, and then I saw it. My God, what I saw. I still get goosebumps when I think about it. Something is standing in front of me. Tall, almost reaching the ceiling, with a twisted neck, eyes like 2 black holes, pale to the point of blue. Skinny, you can see all its bones. Stooped, naked. It stands and sways. People can't stand like that. It's snake-like. It stands there, looking at me and smiling a creepy smile. In the dim light, I could see everything so clearly. Every disgusting detail. My soul sank into my heels. I want to scream, but my throat is constricted. Instead of a scream, a kind of wheeze comes out. I want to run, but I'm rooted to the spot. I stood there, neither alive nor dead. I clutched my bag in my hands. Apparently, this thing got tired of looking at me, because it stretched its flabby, blue hand toward me. That's when my nerves gave out. I fainted. Smack. And then there was nothing. I don't know how long I lay there. I woke up to a strange sound. It sounded like someone was slurping. Children eat like that when they're little, before they learn how to behave at the table. I felt terribly scared. I've never been so scared in my life, and I hope I never will be again. Are they eating me? I thought. But it didn't hurt, and no one was touching me. I just lay there. Finally, I gathered my courage and raised myself up on my elbows. I thought it was a monster, but it wasn't a monster. My dear mother, my red-haired client, was sitting with her back to me, crouching down and eating something. There seemed to be a pile of something in front of her. She was sitting there chewing. I was so relieved that there was no monster that my head was spinning. It didn't even occur to me to wonder why a girl was eating in such a strange position, and in the dark at that. And what? And why didn't she pay any attention to me lying in the middle of the room? At that moment, I was just glad that there was someone I knew nearby. I rejoiced too soon. I started to say something, and she turned around. I will never forget that. I will remember it until I die, until I go to my grave. She turned around, and her eyes were like a cat's, glowing in the dark, with black circles under them. Her face was elongated and sharp. Her features became strange, sharp, and her teeth. She didn't have teeth like that. Small, sharp, and so many of them. I looked closely at the heap next to her, and it was my monster, lying there, crumpled like a rag, twitching. And she was eating him, half swallowing, half sucking it in like air, gorging herself, choking with greed. I screamed, and not knowing myself, flew out of the apartment. How I got up, how I ran, I don't remember. I left my bag there, my shoes too. Good thing I didn't take my clothes off. The keys to my car and apartment were still in my pocket. I keep them together. I just rushed home. I'm still amazed I didn't get into an accident. I was out of my mind. At home, I turned on all the lights and turned on the TV. I spent the whole night drinking cognac, which I had bought to add to my coffee in the morning. I drank without eating anything. I only fell asleep when it started to get light. And I regretted so much that I lived alone, that I didn't have a boyfriend, and didn't even have a cat at home. I was shaking so much. I barely recovered from that horror. I slept with the nightlight on for a long time, and shuddered at every sound. A couple of weeks later, this red-haired beauty comes into my office. She hands me my bag with my shoes, and says, "Thanks for the keys, but next time, let me know in advance when you're coming over. You never know what people are busy with." She looked at my pale, drawn face, smiled sweetly, and calmly walked out. What was that? What the hell? After that, the girl lived in the apartment for another 6 months, and then moved out. I didn't notice anything else strange about her. But I wasn't eager to find out. You couldn't have lured me back to that woman with a bag of gold, let alone with a machine gun. We terminated the contract at the office. I didn't even go to check if everything was in place and in order in the apartment. I got rid of her, and that was that. But here's the strange thing. After that girl, a young family with a child rented the apartment, and they still live there. What's more, they bought the apartment and were very happy to do so. And this after the tenants changed almost every 2 months. So the question arises, what did that strange girl eat? And who or what was she? What was that all about? Although I try not to think about it. It's calmer that way. I just accept it as a fact now. Strange things happen, and I try not to remember. Just accept it as a fact. Learn to live with it, and forget. There are lions in Africa, right? So there are ghosts somewhere too. I pray for only one thing, that this somewhere is far away from me. This happened during the Stagnation period. There was a surgeon living in a city. He had a huge sheepdog. This dog was very aggressive and vicious and would attack people. The surgeon lived in a multi-story building, and in the neighboring building lived a family with a little girl. The surgeon often walked around the courtyard with his dog, where the residents of the neighboring building also walked. One day, the little girl went out to play in the yard without her parents. At that moment, the doctor was walking his dog. The surgeon was distracted by something and did not keep an eye on his dog. The animal pounced on the little girl, grabbed her with its teeth, and began to shake her. Neighbors rushed over and rescued the child, but she suffered serious bites. The girl's parents complained to the police about the surgeon and his vicious dog. The next time he was walking his dog, the police arrived. Since a complaint had been made about the dog and it posed a danger to the public, the police surrounded the animal. The surgeon begged them to spare the dog's life, but the police shot the animal. The girl's parents were present. The surgeon loved his dog very much. At first he cried like a child, and then he angrily said to the girl's parents, "What you did to me, I will do to you. You took my dog away from me, and you will give it back to me." No one understood why he said that. Everyone decided that he had said something absurd because of stress, grief, and resentment. But the parents should have thought about those words. Time passed. The girl's bite wounds healed, and everyone forgot about the unpleasant incident with the dog. But one day, the girl disappeared. The police searched and searched, but couldn't find her. Then her parents remembered that the surgeon had been very angry with the girl for killing the dog, and that he might have something to do with her disappearance. The police decided to check out this theory. They raided the surgeon's apartment. And, oh my God, what did they see? It was unbelievable. A strange creature was crawling around the surgeon's apartment, tied to a chain, half human, half dog. It whimpered and growled, but couldn't speak. Its body was like that of a girl, but with short legs. The creature was covered with dog hair. Its face was half human, but its lower jaw was that of a dog. The surgeon was arrested and soon confessed everything. It turned out that after the dog was killed, he quickly devised a plan for revenge. He decided to turn the girl who was responsible for the death of his beloved four-legged pet into a dog. One day, he waited for the girl and dragged her into his apartment. The surgeon set up a makeshift operating room in his home, and after putting the child to sleep, performed a series of inhumane operations on her. He partially amputated and shortened her legs so that she could move freely on all fours, like a dog. Then he transplanted a dog's skin onto her body and performed plastic surgery on her larynx so that the child could no longer speak, but could only bark, whine, and growl. Then this mad doctor transplanted a dog's jaw onto the girl and also altered her tongue with plastic surgery. The girl lived in chains and ate food from a saucer like a dog. This maniac planned to turn the girl into a dog completely. If the police hadn't stopped him, he would have changed the child so much that no one would have guessed that she was a human being. Everyone would have thought she was a dog. But the police arrived in time and managed to expose him. The doctor was sent to prison, and the girl was returned to her parents. She cried and whimpered constantly. She was treated by a speech therapist, and although there was some progress, she never learned to speak. She also never learned to walk on two legs. She crawled around her parents' apartment on all fours and lapped food from a saucer. None of the doctors dared to restore her human form. It was too complicated an operation. They could damage vital organs.